Hello, how are you? My name is Darren Moore. We're here at the Manhattan Center. I am the chief engineer here, and we are in the Log Cabin studio. We also call it the Fuse Box here on 34th Street in Manhattan. As you can see, this is our premier facility down here for doing music production. And today we're going to meet with the guys from TC, talk about all the wonderful gear they make and how we use it in recording. We have here a nice 72-channel VR made by Neve. It's great console, beautiful EQs, wonderful preamps that we use all the time. Actually, I rarely have the need to go to an outboard preamp because this guy does all the work for me. Great speaker system. We use a few different reverbs and stuff. What I notice in my rack here is that I always have two in every room, two of the TC 2290s, the best delays you can ever imagine. You've got a vocal that's going to be on a record and you want nice warm trails, but not too obtrusive, something that reminds you of classic record sound. It's going to be, the vocal's going to be very much in front of the music and kind of naked, and you want to warm it up and surround it with some nice flavor. The TC does a great job for that. This is another favorite of mine, a TC Electronics 1210 Spatial Enhancer. Spatial Expander and Stereo Chorus. It's a great device, great device. I use it a lot to give stereo packages coming out of Pro Tools or coming out of some kind of recording system nice width and depth, and fatten them up, fill up the tracks better. It's great if you want to use it to give a guitar package some extra flavor. Oftentimes I'll put it on some background vocals to make them sparkle and sound nice and crispy without taking over the whole track. I just happen to be working on something that's a project that's kind of in-house and kind of hush-hush. We're kind of developing it for possibly a submission for a movie that's coming out soon. I'll play you some of the basic tracks and show you a little bit of what I do. So here we go. So, record a lot of live drums here, which is nothing sounds as good as live drums on a record. And then if you have a great drummer, it's even better. So here you are. It's a multi-setup, multi-mic setup for the drums. I usually use about 10 to 12 mics on drums. Couple on the kick, couple on the snare, because that's where you want the most flexibility in tone and presence. Then you want to put one on the hi-hat, one on each tom. Sometimes we even do two on each tom if you want that really big John Bonham rock and roll sound. This one we kept it to one on each tom. And then a nice pair of overhead mics, something, some condenser with a great frequency range, and it can handle a lot of level. Now, once you've done that, you want to put some reverb on it, make it sound like it's in a nice big room, make the snare pop, and get the cymbals to shimmer a lot. You know, we throw a little bass in there. A bass is a very temperamental instrument to record a lot. It depends on the instrument and what you use to record it with. Oftentimes, I'll take a direct signal from a bass. That way I have the most control and most flexibility on it, meaning don't go to an amp, just go straight to some kind of direct inject box. If you want more low frequency and to move more air, plug it into an amp, fire it up in the room, put a mic right on the cabinet, something with a nice big large diaphragm on it. Even a dynamic mic with one of those will work. And if you want to make sure you get enough punch and enough low end, so that's balancing between the low frequency, the under 100 set, and the mid-range, the tight mid-range, upper mid-range between 1 and 3K. That's a good place to start. And then of course when you're working on a pop record, there's going to be plenty of guitars in it. This record has a lot of guitars in it. And guitars are best if you go to an amp, to an actual amp. Even if you use some kind of effects pedal or some kind of device, it's good to have an amp just to get that sound. Most guitar players are used to playing to an amp, so they're used to the way it's supposed to sound coming out of an amp. And most big records where you have a lot of guitars, you need the sound of that amp to move the air and actually give you a real feeling. You know? And I'm not against recording it direct and then reamping it, but I always like to go to an amp and put a microphone in front of the amp. And actually I use 2 or 3 different microphones when I record guitar amps. And then we stack them and fatten them up and they all sound great. And I'll play a little bit. I like to use ambient mics when I'm recording guitar. It's a decision-making process. If it's going to be a record that's going to be more radio-friendly and pop sounding, I won't use a lot of an ambience mic. I'll get that from reverb or some kind of delay effects and everything else. It just helps the guitar sit up front more. And we have a lot of keyboards in a record, which a lot of modern pop records have. it becomes hard to distinguish a guitar from a keyboard when you have a lot of ambience on it. But for a vintage sound, if you want to get something, or especially for a guitar solo, it's very good to put a nice big microphone 6 to 10 feet away from it in a room with a lot of reverb, and that way you can adjust how much of that actual room tone is mixed in, that ambience tone is mixed in with the guitar sound. It's a good way to work. It's a good way to work if you have the room and the space. It's always good to capture one, whether you use it or not. And once you capture it, you have it. And that's some good stuff there. So, you know, I'm also going to go and show a little bit of how TC helps me get records done and making things sound the way I want to sound. Now, one thing I like to do, I will go back to that 1210. I use it to fatten up things spatially. Like, as I said, I'd use it on background vocals to give them a sparkle, give them some movement internally against, you know, the static vocal that's going to be in the center and everything else. But another clever trick I like to do with it is to throw it on the overheads. So I'll take that here and I'll solo it here with a bit of little that TC in the overheads coming up. And I can actually make it sound so you can hear what's going on. And that's pretty much what the TC is doing. And it's got a little flangy, a little flaziness. It's giving the cymbals a little presence, a little extra presence, and that snare is giving it a little motion. So with that, you can add a little bit of the drums back into it. Now that's a little too much, but just sneaking that in there gives you this flavor that's amazing. It gives space and everything to the drums and gives the cymbals sparkle and presence on top of everything else and some depth. And that's one thing I like to do, TC stuff. Another great thing to do with TCs, works really nice on guitars too, do that spatial enhancement thing. But I have a little delay happening on this guitar, and it's coming from the TC. And the one thing I like about the TC is the TC 2290 is not only do you get a delay, you can also get a bit of chorusing or flanging going on as well. You can set the amount. So let me just play what the TC is doing. If you can hear, oh, got a little noise. Fix that. Okay. Always listen to what you're working on. Cool. And it has a bit of chorusing thing going on. And that's cool because even though it's throwing a delay, just a bit of a delay, the chorusing is what I'm really looking for. That's giving it some space and some width to the actual sound of the record. Another great use for that TC 2290 is, as I said before, lead vocals. Oftentimes you build a record and you put some delays to give stuff space and everything else, and it's hard not to go too far and make everything mushy and washed out with delay. So we back it off a little bit, but the good thing about the TC delay is that it's very smooth, it's very full range. You can EQ it or affect it various ways from within the actual box. You can add some flanging, some chorusing to it and everything else. But the delay itself is going to be real smooth, and if you have a record where you have a vocalist singing and it needs to be intimate and passionate at the same time, and you want to put that delay up into it, and the music is very small behind it, and you don't want that delay to take over the whole song, but you want it to support the singer, the TC is the first go-to delay for that. It's great if it's going to be heard, if it's going to be tucked in and everything else to blend with everything else. It has a magical element that it does, because I guess the sound quality of it is so smooth and full range, and a lot of the digital delays can give you a grainy sound or like a real too clean delay return that's just competing with the vocal itself. The TC will give you all of that if you want, back it off if you're not, but it's easy to dial in a nice smooth delay that's present and full and supporting a lead vocal without taking too much of it over. So these are the few things that I like to do, and another thing I like to do is listen. You can hear that TC chorusing delay giving those guitars some real depth. And since that's kind of like a lead part of the guitar, it focuses the song, focuses your mind and attention on that sound. And again, if you listen closely to the drums, they have more space now with that spatial expansion going on and that flanging kind of chorusy thing, stereo chorusy coming from the 1210. Now, you know, that helps me a lot, because when you're making a record, a lot of people are listening on headphones, some people are going to listen on stereo, some people are going to play it at a nightclub, some people are going to play it at an arena. And you want it to sound huge and wide in any department, in any place where it's going to be heard. You want it to take over the whole field of vision sonically, so that your listener, no matter where they're placed, they feel like the music is surrounding them and engulfing them. And I think the TC stuff works great for that. We also use the System 6000. We like to use that a lot. That's great for the spatial surround stuff. We have another great studio upstairs that we do a lot of production work for television and film where they need surround. And the TC helps us to easily give you one device that's going to build a surround reverb and in the box adjust how much is going to happen in the rear speakers, how much is going to be focused in the front, how to swirl a sound, or swirl a tail of an effect around in the speakers. So if you want to give someone the effect that the music is spinning around their head, the TC allows you to do that quite easily. And there's some great devices, some futuristic stuff these guys are making. I myself love the Polytune that you guys make. Like as I said, down here in this music room, we do a lot of live recording with musicians and guitar players come in. If you see on the wall, we have great Gibson guitars hanging up there and some Epiphone guitars. And a lot of the people that come here and work like to come because they can grab a SG or grab a Les Paul and plug it into our Marshall or into our Fender amp. I got some good mics on it and they know the tone that they're going to get is going to be exactly what they're looking for quite easily. Then you got to stay in tune if you want your tone to be good. And this buddy works better than anybody else. And we leave it in line. It's a true bypass. So when you click it off and you don't need to tune, you don't have to be worried about any electronics encumbering the signal that you're recording. But when you click it in, I find, being a guitar player myself and using several of these tuners over the years, that just the accuracy of getting the guitar in tune quickly with this guy. It has a nice bright LED screen on it. It has that cool polyphonic tune feature, so if you think something's a little out, strum open strings and you can see right away which string is the offender, which is sometimes what we're always looking for. And when you're trying to tune a guitar for, great rhythm guitar parts or even lead parts, a lot of times you want a real precise tuning, because that'll make the guitar sing. It'll make the tone and sweetness of the guitar come out if everything is tuned nicely and the proportion between the tuning of the individual strings is correct. This guy, I find, works so quickly and easily for that it doesn't impede our sessions recording. And we use studio guitars. They don't have all the mechanics on them that live guitars have, the locking tunings and the pegs and everything else. We use a lot of guitars that are studio guitars, which means it's just guitars, strings, everything's clean and nice and set up perfectly. But before every take, we turn on the tuner, look and see and make sure we're totally in tune, and then we go for it. And this guy helps a lot, the Polytune.